This is a happy morning. We're here to celebrate the baptism of Mabel and Tatenda, and yet we've just heard a rather grim reading from Scripture, from the Gospels, talking about the cross, talking about suffering, talking about dying. And we might think, why didn't Father Brett choose a different passage this morning? Well, let's have a look at the Gospel passage and see what we make of it. Jesus and his disciples are travelling. He turns to them and says, "Who do people say that I am?" It sounds like a simple question, and they answer, well, some people think you might be John the Baptist, or the ancient prophet Elijah, or one of the other prophets, making a comeback. And Jesus says, well, but who do you say that I am? And Peter gives what sounds like the right answer. Do you remember when you were in school how good you felt if you put your hand up and had the right answer? Well, Peter says, you are the Messiah. And if Peter feels pleased with himself, he doesn't get long to enjoy that feeling. Because straight away, Jesus starts talking about walking into danger. Walking into danger in Jerusalem, and about how he's going to suffer and die before being raised again. Now, this is not really what Peter wants to hear at all. Why keep heading towards Jerusalem if something as dreadful as this is going to happen? Why not stop right now? And that makes sense, doesn't it? We all know that there's enough trouble in life, enough suffering in life, without going out looking for it. Okay, we admire brave people who put themselves at risk, people who make costly choices for a good reason. And I'm thinking here of, for instance, of people like the surfer who stays with his mate who's been attacked by a shark and helps him get back to shore. Or a young doctor, perhaps, who leaves a thriving practice in the suburbs and goes off to some really risky, dangerous place to work, let's say, with Médecins Sans Frontières. Or a foster mum who takes in yet another abused and difficult child. Or people who go out and help fight fires. I'm thinking of people like that, people who make brave decisions and do costly things. We're glad that people like that are out there, but just like Peter, I guess we don't easily want to go there ourselves. We'd rather play it safe, I know I would. And if we're faced with something that might take us out of our comfort zones, something that's challenging or risky, well, we can come up with all sorts of excuses. I'm too young, or I'm too old. I need to get more experience first. There are more qualified people to do that without me stepping up. Nothing that I could do is going to make much difference anyway. It would be a waste of my talents. My friends will think I'm crazy if I do this. It's an ancient temptation for us to play it safe, to watch out for ourselves, and to minimize risk-taking. And in some way, at some time, it happens for each and every one of us. But if this becomes our regular way of responding to life's challenges, then Jesus' rebuke to Peter speaks to us as well. Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. I came across some writing by an Anglican priest called Barbara Brown Taylor, She must have been thinking along these lines when she was reflecting on Jesus saying, if anyone wants to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. And she asks questions that we might all ask when we look at those lines. What's with all this cross-bearing stuff? Doesn't God want me to be happy? Doesn't God care about my comfort and my safety? And she says the clear answer, according to this passage in the Gospel we've just read, the clear answer is no. No. God doesn't care about my comfort and safety. God doesn't care whether I'm happy or not. What God cares about, what God really cares about, with all the power of God's holy being, is the quality of my life. Not just the continuation of my breath and the health of my cells, but the quality of my life, the depth of my life, the scope of my life, the weight and the flavour of my life. And she says that the deep secret of Jesus' words about taking up the cross is that our fear of anything to do with suffering and death can rob us of life itself. The truth that Jesus showed us when he turned steadfastly towards Jerusalem is that the way to have abundant life is not to save it, not to clutch it to ourselves, not to hang on to it at all costs, but to spend it, to share it, to give it away. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Imagine for a moment God's gift of life. We all have received this gift, this wonderful gift. Imagine God's gift of life as water. Not sanitized, filtered, bottled stuff. Imagine living water, and there's an abundance of it after the wonderful winter rains we've enjoyed here. Water generously spilled out, rushing and splashing over rapids and swirling through deep, calm pools, always flowing downstream, spreading out, giving itself to enrich the surrounding dry land, and finally merging with the ocean without ever looking back. Well, Jesus' life, his life with us, was just like that. And it frightened Peter. He didn't want Jesus' life to be spilled out, to be shared and offered up. Peter wanted to dam it, to hold on to it, to save it, to preserve it. He wanted to find a safer, more comfortable, less costly way for Jesus to be God's Messiah, God's anointed and chosen one. So Peter got stuck on the hard bit about suffering and dying, and because he got stuck on that, he missed the bit about rising again and sharing in the eternal glory of God. Did you hear it in the gospel as it was read? Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Just like Peter, we can get stuck in fear of anything that calls us to go with the sometimes wild, turbulent, unpredictable flow of life. No wonder we sometimes find life rather boring, unsatisfying, and even sort of pointless. So this morning, as we baptize Tatenda and Mabel and sign them with the sign of the cross, let's think of Jesus saying, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. And let's hear those words spoken to us and to Mabel and to Tender, not as an invitation into suffering and death alone. There will always be some challenges in life, but let's hear those words as an invitation to follow Jesus the Christ into life, into generous, self-giving life, now and forever.